Friends, very good morning. On a rainy day, we were contemplating early in the morning whether to have it or not. And I told some of my friends who were supposed to come from Arakonam, Tiruvallur, all of them, I said, wait till 7 o'clock, if the rain doesn't stop, you can stay at home. So at 7 o'clock, they were all happy and celebrating in the group that today there was a meeting for them. But for the rest of them, I said, we'll wait till 8 o'clock. But there, the organizers, unfortunate thing, it stopped exactly at 7:40, 7:45. This is not political, but we have to definitely thank that government because in my last 50 years, I've never seen like this. With the heavy rain for the past so many days, but still we are able to motor our car comfortably. I'm glad that all of you are here. In fact, this is the fifth meeting for us here once we started this place, but this is the first one for the Chennai Book Club. Uh, Many of you know people like Swapna was instrumental in forming Book Club India those days. In fact, we started our meeting at Writers Cafe in the year 2018. We continued there for almost 1.5 years. Then the Writers Cafe probably thought that we could afford to pay more. They went on increasing from 1,500 to 5,000 rupees. We always find new routes whenever it gets choked. Then first time we remodeled our office in the front area, converted that as a reading room, and almost 1.5 years we enjoyed there. Thanks to COVID, everything came to a standstill. Then during the COVID time, we were busy with our online meetings. Varangal Padipom, Varangal Padipom. 3 times in a week we used to meet in Zoom. Even today, it's going very strong with the presence of 150 plus members. Every week, close to 50 to 70 people join. And both the events together, we have completed 300 numbers, more than 100 eminent people from different, the people from literature side have participated. Then 200 different books have been reviewed. Then we thought that it would be appropriate to bring this back into action. It's a Book Club India. So once we have done this remodeling work, the problem for that is, the challenge would be that somebody has to take it up and carry it forward. It's easy to start, but the real challenge would be to make it happen week after week. That's what we used to insist, that the consistency is very, very important. Quality will come automatically. It gets adjusted to the needs and wants of the people, but that the consistency is very, very important. That's why the other two groups are quite successful. And when we started, there were about 50 to 60 groups across the Tamil speaking world, but today we are only one who sustain because of that week after week, people dedicate themselves to conduct it. So as we are always looking out for such programs, to have coordinators. Kripa, she came and asked me one day, after we completed a program at RMRL, Rojamuthi, where our chief guest is associated. Sir, நம்ம எப்போ வந்து book club meeting ஆரம்பிக்க போறோம் அப்படின்னு. The basic rule that I have learned in my life is if somebody gives you a suggestion, they are the right people to lead it. Then that was a starting point, and the misfortune for Kirpa started that day, and fortunately, you are here today. So I really appreciate and congratulate Kirpa for initiating this. So is so passionate, dedicated, and committed, and so has another budding, I would say, an academician who would be soon. Right now, she is pursuing her research. Joyce, she also has shown a lot of interest. Apart from that, Asha is the coordinator for all these events. She has been there every event of this reading community, Padipom, and this one. Tomorrow they're going to start one program for children, online program for children, exclusively for children. The evenings on Monday, storytelling session. So Asha is also here. So we're glad that you all have come. We were contemplating even at 9:45, 9:50 when the chaiwala asked how many coffees shall I bring. Only Asha and I were here at 9:43, 9:50. I said, let me confirm to you at 10, 10. So I'm indirectly indicating to you that a coffee will also arrive, but if the permission of the chair, we would serve you because that should not disturb its flow. So this is, a kind of an intellectual exercise. I firmly believe that if at all the society has to go forward and we have to compete in this world, we have to definitely acquire this reading skills. Reading skills would make us different from rest of the species. I meant rest of the species is, as you all know, Ari says that in the coming days there will be two kinds of people: useful people and useless people. The useless people is one who cannot use his brain. He can only use the products created by the useful people, right? With so many things, we can't create our own mobile phone today. We can't manufacture our phone. So tomorrow, I mean, I'm not saying the country or anything. I'm saying only the people who are creative will bring out something. The others would be simply consuming it. The day they cannot consume, they will perish. So to be creative, the ideal way is to read books because reading open up our minds that we have seen over the days. And these kind of intellectual exercises, I would say that this is an exercise, like physical exercise, this is a mental exercise. When you have an eminent person like Panneerselvan is here, you will only trigger you to go and read further. It is not something that what he is going to tell you and you take it everything and accept. We don't believe that. It has to be questioned. The rational thinking is very, very important. So I'm sure that you would all be part of this because you have to get addicted to this. Addiction is very, very important. The power of habit. Charles Duhigg says that habits are very good. Habit formation is very good. Only thing whether it's good for your health or not that you have to decide. Because cigarette smoking may give me a temporary pleasure, but whether it is helpful to me in the long run or not, that I have to take a call. So the reading habit is very, very good, and I'm sure, as we have seen in other groups, Varangal, Padipom, one Sunday evening we close it by any chance for something else. People will call from different parts of the world and say, "What happened today?" No, Varangal, Padipom. So that's because people easily get habitual to that. I'm sure Sunday morning we will all continue to meet, alternatively English and Tamil. Last week, Professor Dr. Arasu, former head of the Department of Tamil in Madras University, was here and he spoke so beautifully about the origin of book. Today, we are going to talk. He is going to discuss about movie, cinema. What I suggest is those who have not been part of our the broadcast group. Please leave your. I have sent to everybody, even this morning. If you have not received anything, that means you are not in that broadcast group. Leave your name and mobile with one of these three people. I will take it down. And yes, of course, Sibi is also part of he is now automatically become one of the chief, of the coordinating committee, particularly the technology. He is now handling it. Thank you, Sibi, for that. So you will get to know about the programs well in advance. So my sincere advice is before you come here, read that book and come. Then it will open up you very well. Once again, I wanted to name every one of you and welcome, but one paucity of time. Also, there is a risk of not mentioning some names, and we should not, lead into problems. So better I presume that I've called all your names. Let's get into the program first. This is probably in my life second or third time we have not started program on time. Usually, even if there are not anybody here, still I continue to talk as if I'm, Devraj knows that was Devraj. I always believe that the time is very essence of everything, including any event. Most of the programs we see in Chennai, we may not know what time it starts and what time it ends. That's why many people are sick of going for program. But we will start exactly on time at 10:30. But we always mention 10 o'clock because 10 to 10:30 we will want to keep it as a fellowship time to know each other and discuss with the guests and all that. So, and we will wind up at 12 o'clock no matter. Of course, we started late, but we'll try and complete by 12 or maybe 10 or 15 minutes because he has to deliver what he has brought in. So most important thing is, you are entered into a place, right? So you also look at those books and buy those books also. Because that is very important for a bookseller to stand here week after week and do that. So I'm sure that you would do that also. So thank you very much, and I invite Joy to formally introduce. No, you are Joy. She's Joy. Okay. So Joyce would formally, Joy, in fact, she's from Polymer TV. She's a very top executive there. So Joyce, are you ready with the brief biodata of our guest? Welcome, Joy.
A S Panneerselvan is fellow of Roja Muttaya Research Library. Earlier, he was a longer-serving readers editor of The Hindu, an independent internal news ombudsman functioning with clearly formulated terms of reference. Apart from being a regular columnist, he is also a journalism teacher and is an adjunct faculty of the prestigious Asian College of Journalism, Chennai. With wide experience in both print and television journalism, he is the executive director of the regional media development organization PANOS South Asia since 2004. He is a board member of the Organization of News Ombudsmen and Standards Editor representing Asia. He was a vice chair and the steering committee member of the Global Forum for Media Development and an advisory panel member of the 9th International Journalism Fellowship Program administered by ICFJ. He is a member of the governing board of KM Adimulam Foundation for Arts in Chennai. He was a fellow of Reuters Journalism Fellowship Program in University of Oxford in 1998. Panneerselvan has lectured widely in the US and in Europe, both on politics as well as on media. The stage is yours, sir.
See, you adjust in such a way so that our face will allow it to go. You can talk, sir. போடலாம் போடலாம் இங்கே இருக்கலாம்ல பார்த்து சரியா இருந்தா ஓகே It's okay, fine. Sir, go ahead, sir. Okay.
Good morning. See, for me, the central aspect is understanding how art and culture manage to have its trajectory in a newly emerging country. Therefore, the post-independent India's art and cultural trajectory becomes a central area of interest. And the first area I looked at was the decline of royal patronage for art. When decline for the royal patronage of art happened, the first city which emerged as a incubator for art was Bombay. So Bombay decided to use its corporate wealth to support art. So we saw these performers moving to a metro and corporate centers or corporate institutions becoming the new patrons. But that is the central aspect, and that's how we see institutions like NCPA coming into existence. Around the time when NCPA and Jahangir Art Gallery was coming there, we saw two institutions coming up in this part of the world. One was the Music Academy, another one was Kalakshetra. And these two institutions are fraught with whole range of sociological contradictions. What are the sociological contradictions and why it is important is what is getting documented in this fascinating book by Hari Krishnan. Hari Krishnan teaches in the US, and unfortunately this is one of the American University Press's publication, which means it's slightly expensive, and I hope we get a quick Indian public edition of this. The central aspect of this book is it documents the transition from Nattuvanars to institution like Kalakshetra. That transition happened and mediated through a wonderful institution called cinema. And that in the history or that link is the one which was consciously erased by Krishna Iyer and Rukmani. And this book documents about how Krishna Iyer and Rukmani erased that history. Rukmani acts in a film called Raja Desingh. And in the Raja Desingh, the entire dance sequence was choreographed by Valu Ramaya Pillai. And Valu Ramaya Pillai's choreography for Raja Desingh becomes the dance motives and the methods which Kalakshetra finally produces as its school. Therefore, the essential Kalakshetra school comes from this one. Therefore, the only visual link was the film. What Rukmani and the Kalakshetra approach was to buy the negative rights of the film and destroy the film, because they did not want to have a film influence on art, because they wanted to show art as something very pure and cinema as decadent. Therefore, the decadency of cinema has to be kept at the bay. And to keep that decadency of cinema at bay, they have to reconstruct the history also. And the essential part of reconstructing the history is to destroy the evidence of her being part of Raja Desingh. But one interesting aspect is, if you destroy evidence at one area, you also leave evidences in other area. While she bought the negative rights and she destroyed, all the publications and the posters which came around that time were with quite a lot of private collectors. And for instance, this is the poster of the Raja Desingh film. And this poster was quite popular among private collectors, including Mr. Roja Mutaya, from whom we got for a library. And then there were film books which spoke about Arundale explaining the nuances of the dance in that film. And Arundale has actually traveled from theatre to theatre explaining the choreography of Rukmani. That has been also reported, and these two reports gave an idea of the influence of cinema on performance. Now, this influence of cinema on performance is so central because there are quite a few wrong interpretations which have gained currency much later. One of the biggest interpretation is Krishna here wanted the rights of the hereditary dances to be preserved because he felt that art has to be kept alive. That is one theory which is going on. But actually, if you look at Krishna Iyer's note, Krishna Iyer was not a great supporter of the traditional dances. He wanted traditional dances to be transferred to Brahmins. Until that point of time, he wanted them as a vessel. Therefore, it was purely as a carrier rather than as a inherent artistic entities. I'll just read out that section where Krishna Iyer says this. One second. Because we all know about Muthulakshmi Reddy or anti-North spell and the debate around that. And when we are looking at that, there are two sets of texts which are now coming up. One is a set of texts saying that Rukmani Devi and the team helped to preserve the dance, and Muthulakshmi Reddy tried to stifle the artistic existence of hereditary dances. And Muthulakshmi Reddy's understanding of women body or the female body was problematic. The key question is, in this narrative, there is no record that Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy was one of the earliest gynecologists in this part of the world. If a earliest gynecologist is not concerned about the woman's body, I don't understand who is going to be concerned about women's body. And that question doesn't never comes up in that entire debate. It frames Muthulakshmi Reddy in a hermetically sealed narrative without providing the context for her intervention. Second aspect is Krishna Iyer's role, because Krishna Iyer, as a founder of the Music Academy, challenges the bill, and hence Krishna Iyer is seen as a person who supported the art. But just let's look at Krishna Iyer's statement paper. 1 second. It's here. In 1936, Rukmani Aruntel established the International Academy for Arts, later renamed Kalakshetra. The same year saw the production of the film Raja Desingh, starring T.K. Sundarappa. The film was based on the famous story of 18th century Raja Desingh of Senji, about whom the historian Sanjay Subramaniam has written at length. The film surprisingly featured 3 dances by Rukmani Aruntel, who otherwise, like Gandhi, disparaged the cinematic medium. In late 1950s, long after the film had disappeared from memory for reasons discussed later, Arundel reflected on cinema and dance. The problem of cinema is peculiar. The film engages a traditionally trained musician or dancer, but very soon these change into a new type. The Indian film has now created a type of music and dance, which we can definitely call cinema music and cinema dance. The classical may be protected or preserved if it has to be presented on stage, because it is easily seen that once an artist is engaged on films, he or she cannot completely go back to the traditional way, at least not easily, just as a milk that is once curdled can never again be turned into fresh milk. This is a reading of cinema. She also wrote, in our country, over and above, different types of dance forms such as Kathakali, Manipuri, Kathak, and Bharatanatyam, there's a new type of dance and music which, for want of any other descriptive title, is classified as cinema art. I have no objection to new type, but when in this so-called new dance, there is no originality at all, except in distortion of pure classical forms such as Bharatanatyam. Which he sees film dance on account of its hybridity and cultural bricolage, like older forms of Devadasi dance, is cast as distortion of imaginary purity. The key idea is the way she constructed that purity, and the way that entire purity gets played out is our theme of this book. This book works so well for 2 reasons. One is we have the documentation of what happened with Nadaswaram players, and we have the complete documentation of what happened with singers. There's a very fine history of T.N. Rajaratnam Pillai done by Japanese scholar Terada. Terada actually looks at Rajaratnam Pillai's interaction with the music establishment. He asked them, why the hell are you not giving us prime time? They say that we have a lot of respect for Nadaswaram, but the problem is your decibel level. We have tied up with All India Radio to have a prime time broadcast, and with your decibel level, we are not able to have it for transmission or broadcasting. Hence, we are not giving you the prime time. That was the reasoning given by the musical establishment. Rajaratnam Pillai goes back to Narsingapettai, sits with three carpenters, redesigns Nadaswaram, and creates a particular decibel level which could be used for amplification. And once he redesigns Nadaswaram, he also redesigns Tawil by adding this patti around the instrument so that its decibel level was also brought down. Once he comes and he establishes it, the music establishment turns around and says that what was once a great banyan tree has been reduced to bonsai by Rajaratnam Pillai. Therefore, Rajaratnam Pillai was completely distraught. He says that if you do, you are damned. If you are not doing, you are damned. Why don't you guys say that we don't want your music? Why do you want to compare with some weird ideas? With this very idea of, in fact, that paper is called Nostalgia. How nostalgia has been used to control cultural narratives. Therefore, on music, we have that fine work by Terada dealing with Rajaratnam Pillai. And there's also an extraordinarily brilliant biography of M.S. Subbulakshmi by Keshav Desi Raju. There is one line which is an amazingly brilliant line where M.S. Subbulakshmi says that, look, I don't want to say untruth. My life has quite a lot of unpleasantness. Since there are unpleasantness, I decided not to talk. That, I think, is so central because that silence is not lie. That silence is a much more poignant aspect. But given the centrality of the
Child got so emotional.
Yeah. Yes.
All that was happened to our heart and culture.
So the Keshav Desi Raju's book and Hari Krishnan's book came out around the time when we couldn't really organize discussion because pandemic intervened, and in the meantime, Keshav also passed away, where we couldn't really discuss. But I think that what we have to look at is we have to look at our cultural reality as an interlocking public. And once we understand that it's an interlocking public, we look at what are the problems which are at play and what are the institutions which get a higher pecking order and what are the institutions which are at the lower in that hierarchy of things. In that, actually, cinema seems to be an enabling medium. Therefore, we know about cinema's enabling role in politics. We know about cinema's enabling role in talking about rights. Therefore, from the early N.S. Krishnan days to the present filmmakers like Vetrimaran, Ranjit, and all of them, we have seen various issues being taken up in cinema. But what we don't know is that cinema played a big role in keeping our two art forms going. One is music, another one is performance. Music and performances got their new lease of life because of cinema. And that is the biggest documentation in this book, because he uses Vadavu Ramaya Pillai in an extended manner, because he looks at Vadavu Ramaya Pillai's choreography for first Kamala, Rukmani, and then later for various film producers. Where he says that is the template through which the modern Bharatanatyam dance has emerged. And if you are looking at the modern Bharatanatyam dance history from the dance schools, you don't see any references to the role of these modern Natuvanars who brought in. Because what these modern Natuvanars brought in is also an element of concise presentation. And this element of concise presentation comes from the impact of technology. That has been also brilliantly documented in another documentary film. It's called Off the Record, On the Record. It looks at the emergence of the gramophone records. With the emergence of gramophone records, you are forced to sing within 3.5 minutes. Therefore, you can't have your alabana for 7 minutes because that plate could only take only about 3.5 minutes. That's how the first generation women singers emerged, because all these male performers were not able to render anything within that limited time frame. Therefore, when the technology emerged, the key aspect was also breaking the gender barrier. Therefore, the first set of singing giants, whether it is D.K. Patamal or Gangubai Anekal or M.S. Subbulakshmi, all of them emerged primarily because it was a technology facilitated one. And the role of this is again not getting fully acknowledged. The role of cinema and role of gramophone records are the two central one for us to understand our own trajectory. And in this interesting trajectory, substantial knowledge is in various Indian languages. Therefore, what is available in Tamil and Telugu is so much. But when the scholarship comes, we try to understand our cultural past using the texts which are available in English. Therefore, we don't get into the Tamil songs or to the Telugu songs, but we try to understand it through a review in the Hindu or in the Mail. The moment you're trying to understand the cultural experiences through a different language, you're already lost in translation. Unless and otherwise, we now go back to our original riches which are available in these two languages, we are not going to understand the complexities of this wonderful journey. In this wonderful journey, things which are getting not fully documented are we don't have decent recording of the role of Western Godavari and its great classicism. Therefore, we have heard about Olleti Venkateswarlu, we have heard about Balamuri Krishna, we have heard about Northernary, but they have contributed extraordinary nuances to the South Indian classical imagination. Therefore, what is happening is that there is a selective rendering of a linear history. And now our job is to break that linearity and look at the various folds in which a new nuance was added. And these folds was a geographical one, cultural one, and a linguistic one. And what Hari Krishnan manages to establish is using celluloid as a platform through which you can see the confluence of all these things. So at some level, our film history is a most inclusive cultural experience. People from different walks come in, people from different languages come in, people from different cities had moved in. Therefore, it was genuinely a place of inclusive modernity. Therefore, if your idea is an inclusive modernity, cinema provides a way forward, and it also has a extraordinary ability to influence all forms of narratives. One, in Tamil Nadu, the major departure is moving away from a oral tradition which had a whole range of social markers to a oral tradition which had a common Tamil public sphere. Therefore, if you look at films made in, say, 30s, you will be knowing that, oh, this film is dealing with Iyer, or this film is dealing with a Chettiar, or this film is dealing with Iyengar. The words, the vocabulary had social markers. But by 50s, we moved to having a Tamil public sphere, which is common for the entire state. Therefore, that entire aspect of creating a inclusive public sphere is so central. And within that inclusive public sphere, we have to understand the role of cinema in performances. And that's what Hari Krishnan manages to document. Hence, it's so central. I think I will stop here. If there are questions or we can make it an interactive session, then it will be interesting.
You speak about inclusivity.
Yeah.
In the 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, does the stigmatization of cinema have anything to do with caste per se? Was caste a factor behind the stigmatization of cinema art by the Puritans?
See, at that time, that's the most interesting contradiction which we are not able to resolve. Because if you're looking at the people who are the major film producers, they were all Brahmins. If you had somebody like K. Subramaniam, who was a much bigger film producer, and you have Subramaniam Srinivasan, who's popularly known as S. Vasan, coming and establishing Gemini Studios. Therefore, you have people who are Brahmins or upper caste. Therefore, that entire stigma, from where does it come? We are not really sure. Is it purely an internal rivalry between people who are practicing classical art and people who have moved into industry as cinema? That we are not really sure. Therefore, unless and otherwise, we need some more evidences to see the tension between, say, somebody like Krishna Iyer and S.S. Vasan. If Krishna Iyer as a person who establishes music academy and S.S. Vasan who establishes cinema, what is the relationship? Therefore, I think it's with the passage of time, what we know is that the people who were stigmatizing and the people who were promoting cinema all are from the same social background. Given that one, we are not able to be 100% sure of its trajectory.
Because in that poster, it said Rajeshwari Takis from E Road,
Yeah,
the producer of Raja Racing.
yeah.
So it's intrigued with the stigmatization has more to do with the caste background of the producer.
No, the producers and distributors, most of them were also Brahmins.
Okay.
Quite a lot of them were Brahmins. It is essentially an idea of modern nation states' cultural practices. In fact, that's a slightly larger debate. We have to look at the two trajectories. One is the Tamil Nadu trajectory and one is the All India trajectory. Tamil Nadu trajectory is that we wanted to have a integrated idea of our cultural practices. That's the reason Tamil Nadu, after 67, it creates an institution called Tamil Nadu Iyal-Isai Nadaga Mandram. And they decide to have it as silos. Therefore, there is a Sagatya Academy to look at literature. There is Lalith Kala Academy to look at visual arts. There is Sangeet Natak Academy to look at performing arts. Therefore, the silosing at pan-Indian position and an integrated approach of Tamil Nadu is so central. That is the key difference between Tamil Nadu's approach to culture and All India's approach to culture. And that's a if you're opposing NEP, it's not an act of just saying that we don't want you. We also are opposing it because we have a far more evolved, integrated approach of history, and you don't have an integrated approach of history. Therefore, we don't want you to tell us how we should be doing our own education.
So there's a book profile as to how these classes responded in the likes of NSK or Kalangya, the progressive constituency of the Tamil Nadu politics, when they ventured into cinema. How do they respond? Does a book profile that?
Book documents that part, but book is essentially looking at one element called dance and how the modern dance took its elements from cinema. It touches all those things. It is not overlooking any one of those things, but its primary focus is on Bharatanatyam's present format. Therefore, in fact, the book starts with Hari Krishnan meeting Padmini in New Jersey. Therefore, Padmini, nearly after 25 years after Tilana Mohanabal sitting in New Jersey and reminiscing about it, and she says that பார்க்கிறது வேற கவனிக்கிறது வேற. Therefore, she says that she makes this difference between seeing and observing. In seeing, you don't record everything, whereas in observing, you record everything. And she says that cinema is the one which helps people to observe. And this entire idea, she says that, do you think that if our films were not there, all these girls would have gone for dance classes? They are all going to dance classes because we did it. It's our role which made that difference. That was the opening for Hari Krishnan to look at the relationship between cinema and classical art. That's how he starts. And when he starts that work, it starts with a series of interviews. He meets almost all the dancers, both purely classical and people who were both in cinema as well as in dance, like Padmini, Vaijayantimala, all of them. Till Banu Priya. He goes through all of them, he meets them, and he records the two different trajectories. And that's the reason this book is so interesting, because it talks about the concern of cinema is reach, and concern of classicism is exclusive control. Therefore, how do you negotiate these two inherently contradicting positions? One wants to reach out and democratize, another one wants to retain an exclusive hierarchy.
I have a question too,
Yes.
sir. The one form of transformation we see drastically is cinema. Of course, cinema, where we have seen over the years in 30s, 40s, 50s. Now, in this modern century also, we have been seeing. You also mentioned about Vetrimaran, Ranjit. These are all. How does this transformation takes place? For example, you take from 1950, the biggest transformation in Tamil film industry is undoubtedly Parasakti. It's completely changed. Suddenly, people, all other things become obsolete. The Tyagaraja Bhagavata, when he came back, people have not even realized, because things changed so dramatically. So it happened for Shivaji Ganesan in the 80s, but Shivaji was quick enough to change his roles. How does this, not only in cinema, in every art form, how does this transformation takes place?
Can I just add one question to it?
Can-
Yeah.
1 minute. Sorry.
Yeah, sort of. So you, as he said, in terms of cinema, of course, there's been a sea change. But when you look at a book, read a book like Hari Krishnan's, one also sees that the narrative in terms of, say, we're specifically talking about Bharatanatyam because it occupies such a central position in classical art in Chennai. The narrative has largely remained the same, and as you said, it's largely been very linear, very clean kind of lines have been drawn, and even say somebody like Leela Sampson's book, sort of very much continues down that. So why is it that there has not been, Hari Krishnan's book offers a disjuncture to that? It says that it largely the Bharatanatyam that we know today comes from films, which is a kind of very radical position actually when you look at all the positions that the Natakala conferences generate. Why do you think it has taken so long for academic work on our two classical arts? One is, say, Bharatanatyam, the other is Carnatic music. Because one of the other areas that I searched for literature on was material in English on Carnatic music. Very little has been written from this point of view. Almost everything has been generated from a particular sort of, as you said, the kind of exclusivist position. Why is there such a absence of academic work done on these two areas. I mean, Hari Krishnan's book has come after a very long break. So that's
I think there are two things. One, first element is in our social sciences, we recognize the role of colonialism. We knew that colonialism helped us to create some of the universal institutions. In social sciences, we don't look at colonialism purely as a dominance dependency relationship. We also look at an element of dialogue which was brought in by colonialism. The biggest impact of colonialism is the Tamil language. Tamil language is one of the few languages which managed to reinvent itself for modern world, where it moved from its rigid poetics to a prose. Therefore, that shift in rigid poetics to prose from 18th century towards through 19th century is so central for Tamil to thrive. And that impact is not being captured by academics. And unless and otherwise we try to capture that impact, we are not going to understand the importance of somebody like Taimanavara Vallalar. Taimanavara and Vallalar are two important materialist imagination of this region. And when Vallalar talks about Pasipini Marutuvan as ultimate God, I think that's the most material, basic imagination. And but for that imagination, I don't think later self-respect movement or affirmative actions, none of those things are going to happen. But when we are looking at the cultural one, we don't look at these wellsprings, because these wellsprings are essentially in Indian languages. And within the Indian languages, partly the academic word which thrived on citations. Therefore, I would like to cite something which was published by a known journal. I would like to cite something which was a known institution. And these known institutions and known centers were oblivious to the changes here. In fact, just now, earlier this year, there was a book on Vallalar from Canadian University. Therefore, we have to, next year is going to be Vallalar's 200th year. And for the first time, Vallalar is coming out in a major university this year. Therefore, the key question is, academic approach looks through citations which are in the known texts, and in the known texts seem to be oblivious of the huge knowledge base in Tamil and Telugu. I think that time has come for us to mine this extraordinary wealth of knowledge in Tamil and Telugu to understand our history, as well as that also given us a strength to resist. See, this strength to resist is so central because we have seen what happened to Gujarati cinema. Gujarati cinema is completely subsumed by Hindi cinema. Whereas Tamil or Telugu cinema are thriving. Therefore, this Tamil or Telugu cinema thriving is not an accident. It's not happening in vacuum. It's happening primarily because it draws from its inherent sources of strength. And this drawing from inherent sources of strength is the one which I think academia has not really understood. It's a larger academic issue. Much earlier, when M.N. Srinivas wrote that book called Remembered Village, the opinion is that Remembered Village thinks that Indian village is Malgudi. But Indian village is much more complex. Therefore, Ambedkar calls villages as a cesspool of bigotry. Unless and otherwise we understand our villages without a romantic past. And the Remembered Village by M.N. Srinivas is a celebrated text. It's considered as the best sociological work India has produced. And it takes about 50 years from that for somebody like Anand Pandian to come and write his book towards new anthropology. And his first work was documenting his grandfather's journey from Burma to Madurai. And he decides to do it in bilingually, first in Tamil as Ayavin Adichuatil, and then he is doing it in English. Therefore, for anthropologists like Anand Pandian to emerge, we needed 50 years. I think now it is happening. Therefore, we have Anand Pandian's work and John Hopkins, which is defining. We have Hari Krishnan's book, which is defining. We are having Terada's book is coming out. It should be out before the book fair. That's what I think. It's brilliant. Keshav Desi Raju's book is so important because Keshav Desi Raju's book is so important because he talks about the reason for a performer to opt silence as a technique. Therefore, that when MS tells a friend saying that, look, I don't want to say untruth. There are so much of unpleasant in my life. Hence, I'm not going to talk about it. I think it's a far more poignant and important history. And these histories are not been fully documented. We don't have a proper biography of somebody like, now for the MS, the Keshav's book has helped, but we don't have a book on somebody like M.L. Vasantakumari. M.L. Vasantakumari's daughter, Srividya, when she becomes a big star, and she acts in a film by Bharatanatyam called Aburo Ragangal. Bharatanatyam composes every frame like MLV's concert. All it needs is you have to look at earlier MLV's concert and look at the film. You can see, therefore, in that sense, Aburo Ragangal is an inversion of this book. Their classicism is being injected into cinema. Hari Krishna is talking about cinema injecting classicism. Therefore, with somebody like MLV, what was happening was classicism was injecting into cinema. And we don't have a complete history of somebody like her. Therefore, I think time has come for us to look at all these people, collect a whole range of oral histories. And I think oral histories also help to look at certain nuances which otherwise gets lost in the way our cultural history is written. Way back in 82, Guhan did this book called Bala for Shruti Foundation. While doing that, he noticed a small interaction between Veena Dhanamal and Krishna Iyer. Krishna Iyer asked the Veena Dhanamal, look, we are having our music academy and why are you not coming for this? And Veena Dhanamal in her pungent manner says in Tamil, நீங்க பிராமணர்லாம் போய் எங்க சங்கீதத்தை பத்தி பேசுங்க, நாங்க இங்க பாடின்னு இருக்கோம். That one, நாங்க பாடின்னு இருக்கோம், நீங்க பேசுங்க, is the one which actually exemplifies the problem with the academic world. The academic world has lot of பேசுதல், but less of பாடுதல்.
Actually, you mentioned regarding this Valu Ramaya Pillai.
Yeah.
Valu Ramaya Pillai.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm little close to their family. His grandson, Mr. Sinu, who is the branch manager of Indian Bank, is close to me. Even his house is near the same locality of Kalashatra Colony only.
Oh.
Actually, I want to know Valu Ramaya Pillai, on what stand he is, whether he belongs to our Dravidian stock, his dancing policy, even he performed dancing in Kadamai Kanniyam Kattupadu, acted by Satyaraj, produced by Kamal Hassan. In that film, he is the dance performer, Valu Ramaya Pillai. His grandson is close to me. However, I would like to know whether Valu Ramaya Pillai's policies are for Dravidian stock or he has got different policies.
I don't think dance masters' ideological positions are well defined. There is a certain amount of fluidity. Therefore, I don't think that they are against the Dravidian politics, but I don't think they are part of this political imagination. Therefore, I don't think any one of those dance masters, you can put them in the rank of somebody like N.S. Krishnan. Okay. N.S. Krishnan was a consciously politically charged artist. I don't think all artists are consciously politically charged. And I don't think we should anticipate that if they are fluid and if they are not against what I call public good, then it's fine. Therefore, I don't think that they are technically politically charged
Yes.
person.
Yes, Ramakrishna has written a book in Tamil about Nadaswaram players, Sanjaram, and subsequently got Sahitya Academy Award also. Do you think that the trend is now people to go and reinvent and unearth the lost art and culture?
There is attempt, but the key question is, are we able to bring out its extraordinary beauty fully? For instance, Injakudi Mariyappan had a concert in Chennai about a couple of years ago. What he did is he went around 7 Nadaswaram playing towns, starting from Semanar Koil, and he collected the compositions written by the Nadaswaram Vidwans, and he sang them. Therefore, the first time we heard the lyrical beauty of these songs, because we had never knew that this was the lyrical beauty of these compositions. We were hearing it, but we never associated words with them. And the poetry was comparable to that of Vallalar and Thayamanavar. And these were composed by these Nadaswaram Vidwans. And we never, and therefore what we have asked Injakudi Mariyappan is to put out all these compositions as a book. I asked him how many songs are there. He says each person would have composed anywhere between 50 to 100 songs, which means we should be having about nearly 7,000 songs, which are completely different. And we don't even know what it is. And we knew that because Injakudi Mariyappan sang those songs. And it was interesting imageries. Idea of loss, the way in some of those songs are dealt with, was not a dirge, but it was very, very poignant. To talk about loss and a poignancy without getting to dirge was a great aspect of the Nadaswaram composers in their songs. And when you hear it as purely a Nadaswaram rendition, we don't even know those words. See, barring for a few songs like Sababadik or other things, rest of the songs we don't even know. It's so important for us when you are talking about, see, one of the finest cultural institution which is now in the city, I don't know how many of you have visited, is the Tamil Museum at the Rajanamalai Mandram. The Tamilisai Museum. Tamilisai Museum at Rajanamalai Mandram. How many of us have visited? These are the key questions we have to ask, because there's huge gaps in our understanding, and these gaps have to be filled, and these gaps have to be structurally and consciously filled. And we need to fill these gaps in for culture or practices. Much earlier, when Bharat Bhavan was started, the key challenge posed to Ashok Vajpayee was a bureaucrat in charge of Bharat Bhavan. Therefore, these two artists, J. Swaminathan and K.G. Subramaniam, tell Ashok Vajpayee, look, you are starting a museum and a center for art with the idea of promoting tribal art and tribal culture. Remember one thing, there should be a place of appreciation and not appropriation. Therefore, drawing that line between where appreciation stops and where appropriation begins is the central one. And that's the reason this book is so central, because this book talks about where appreciation becomes an appropriation.
Can you give some examples of that?
See, best example is 2 years ago was a centenary year of Madurai Somu. And for Madurai Somu centenary year, Music Academy had a leg dem in the morning. The morning leg dem, the person comes and says, Madurai Somu's Alabanai was like Ramnath Krishnan. Madurai Somu's Niraval was like. All he did is he was reducing Madurai Somu into a mimicry artist of 30 Brahmin icons. If somebody had all these things in it, it's a completely new genre. How can you reduce him to, oh, his Alabanai was like Ramnath Krishnan, his Niraval was like GNB, this was like Musri Subramani here. That's how it went. My question is, nobody turned around and said, if somebody can incorporate so many elements in their music, then it's a completely different music. And some of the ragas what Madurai Somu sang, nobody else have singing it. For instance, he used to sing a ragam called Neelaveni. How many of them are singing today? Nobody else is singing. Therefore, this appropriation comes in the way of invoking nostalgia in a particular way to put you in place. This happened in Tamil Nadu, and with Nadaswaram it has happened with Taval. Therefore, what you do is you elevate them as Mangala Isai, but you say that you are too loud. Therefore, you come in the beginning and you go away. The amount of tokenism which has been associated with all these things is a key question. That's where the appropriation versus appreciation question comes in.
Wait, whoever wants to talk, please. After that.
So the period you're referring to, the 20s, 30s, and 40s, which are the early 20th century, this was a period when the Justice Party was in power and Tandai Periyar was holding sway. So was there a political or social intervention by the reformist or progressive movements? Did they contribute? Did it in any way help these artists overcome the classist influence of the Ayers and Iyengar?
Yes, that's the reason they decided to have their own performative aspects. That's how the theater becomes a huge impact. Well, what you have to see is the transformation from institutions which are under their stranglehold versus institutions which you can create for your own. Therefore, if Subramani Iyer, E. Krishna Iyer, and Rukmani are going to control classical world, I will put my place. But the idea was coming up with parallel narratives. And the amount of parallel narratives which happen around the time are immense. And most of these parallel narratives also had to face legal sanction. In fact, one of the earliest work to be banned was Ravana Kavyam by Pulavar Kolande. And if you look at the banning of Ravana Kavyam, and when the Ravana Kavyam's ban was later lifted in 68, when 68 ban was lifted and they were republished it, in the second time when it was published, they decided to carry a 1947 introduction by Anna as a opening. They said that right from those days, we know that this is of immense significance and we know that this is how it's going to be handled with. The resistance came from having new forms. Resistance did not come from tinkering the existing forms. They said that, okay, you have it, we'll move to something else. Therefore, oratory, theater, and different forms of performances were central to it. And that's how you have somebody like Dhanapal, who becomes so central because Dhanapal is not only the great sculptor and the teacher of Madras Art School, he was also a person who decided to look at body in a specifically performative manner. He goes and he learns dance, and that's how he meets NSK and Maduram, because he finally marries T.A. Maduram's sister. He learns dance. After learning dance, he wanted to have performances. Therefore, he joins Uday Shankar's troupe. Therefore, the person who was in charge of visual arts in a much bigger way was also a person who looked at body in a specific manner. Much later, when he was teaching people like Santanaraj and Adimulam and others, he used to say that, look, I would like to see body as a frozen one. That's how I do sculptures. I also like to see body in its movement. That's the reason I want dance. Between dance and the sculpture, I see the infinitesimal possibility of body, which means these people have decided to get into forms which are new to negotiate all these realities. Yes.
So, is there any judgment used in the book, whether preserving the art forms, okay, and in its purity, and limiting it to one community is good or bad? Is there any judgment exercise used there in the book?
No, it looks at the bill brought in by Muthulakshmi Reddy and its impact.
Yeah. So, because I just, if you look at one of the sociological literature, Robert Redfield's little tradition, great tradition debate. So where he says that little tradition is nothing but this folk culture. It's a rural folk culture, and then great tradition is nothing but the urban mass culture. So he says there is a constant interaction between the two, and when this interaction happens, it's good because the art form actually grows. For example, okay, he cites some examples. Raksha Bandhan used to be a festival of the rural folks, but then when it traveled, okay, from the little tradition to great tradition, okay, it became a national festival. Like mass culture, it became a part of the mass culture. Similarly, some of those festivals, like we talk about Valentine's Day today, so those things have traveled down from the great tradition to little tradition, and now that is becoming very popular. So that way, I think more than the intent, the consequences seem to be more important. So we being not judgmental, I think growth of art forms, okay, if you consider me growth in terms of different forms, I think mass media or cinema has really helped a lot.
Yeah, I agree, because in 1935, Walter Benjamin writes this outstanding paper called Work of an Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. The central aspect of that paper is that work of an art in the age of mechanical reproduction is you are able to reach out to many people simultaneously. Therefore, if I produce a cinema or if I take a photograph, I'm able to show it to so many people simultaneously. If I'm going to have a performance, it is spatio-temporally specific. It has to be in one place at one time. The multiplicity and multiple access is the key question. When you're going to do that, how are you going to retain the unique place of the artist and the artistry in this work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction? That was the central question. He says that one level it can be enabling, and another level it also lead to commodification. Therefore, he talks about the role of commodification, he talks about enabling. Therefore, he says it's a double-edged sword. At one side it enables, another level it commodifies. Therefore, that has been documented, and that has been the central argument to understand. And that's the reason when World Wide Web happened, they wanted it to be a open source. And this open source web, as we imagined, was supposed to be a multinodal decentralized arrangement. But post-2011, that is the reason for using post-2011 is after the collapse, after the end of Arab Spring, what we see is a digital consolidation. Today, what we are seeing is a digital centralization. And this digital centralization is so important for us to understand today, because when Article 370 was abrogated, all it needed for the government was to switch off the internet. For the entire Kashmir, internet was switched off. And if you look at Anuradha Bhasin versus Government of India case in the Supreme Court, she says that look, you guys said that India should move towards it's a digital reality and to switch off our thing. And what do you want us to do? Therefore, that what we are witnessing is hyper centralization through technology. And hence the idea of art or art history has to be seen as whether it's a centralizing one or it's a decentralizing one. Finally, it comes down to that.
I just want to point out two things. One, so my daughters and I, we chose to do jazz ballet because we found Bharatanatyam, even the teachers were oppressive. So the interesting thing about jazz ballet is it evolved at the same time as the changes that were happening in India between 1890 and 1960. But what happened was that moving from ballet and moving from the European traditional dancing, they actually evolved a syntax of their own, like Bob Fosse, Catherine Dunham, or Luigi Giordano. They actually created an entire dance form, which was, now it is distinct. So nobody goes to a jazz ballet concert expecting to see ballet. So why didn't that happen? Is there of course, appropriation I heard, but why didn't the people who were moving away create their own syntax? That is one. And the second thing correlated with that, as a copyright lawyer, I'm pointing out that we were asked during this period that Kantara had that song on Varaha Rupam, and Thaikudam Bridge had come up with a similar visual, at least visually it was the same identical kind of a situation. The ragam was Todi. Thaikudam Bridge is a rock fusion with Todi ragam, and this was more within quotes traditional Theyyam kind of dance. Now, even here, the whole idea is whether the fusion was going away from the purity, rather than to say that it was creating its own form. So are we still lagging? So what happened in that time, are we still lagging without creating our own identity when we are moving away?
See, I think we are able to move away in various forms like our literature, theatre, public performances, there is a departure. But on all the classical areas, there is a reluctance, and the classical conservatism has a much bigger sway than any other conservatism. For instance, when V. Raghavan works on this idea of Sangeet Natak Academy, and also he was part of the Music Academy's expert committee. He says that people who don't know Sanskrit now want to talk about culture. That was his opening statement. Remember, at that time, he was so influential. Mrs. Gandhi, as the INB minister, was listening to him. And he says it in so many words. But given that aspect, the hold of conservatism within classicism, that's the reason, one of the reasons why people with the upper caste have problems with Hindustani, because invariably you have to acknowledge your negotiation with Islam. Then you are actually acknowledging your multicultural dialogue. You do not want to talk about any multicultural dialogue. That's a, see, how many people are willing to talk about the fact that in Tamil, the five great epics are either Buddhist or Jain text.
Yes.
If it is Manimekalai or Silapadikaram or Sivagasinamani or Kundalakesi, or they're all Jain or Buddhist text. How many of us are willing to acknowledge that there is our inheritance? Our inheritance is a multicultural inheritance. For instance, all of us eat sambar, and how many of us are willing to acknowledge sambar reached this part only with the Marathas coming down. Till Marathas had come, we had no dal. All we had was Kodambu. From Kodambu to sambar is a multicultural change.
That's its own forms.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's all in so many different forms.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
one more. Give us one.
Unlike everybody else who asked before me, I'm not like very well versed in this topic. It's new to me, so you must forgive my ignorance. But you said this thing that after the 1950s, there was this emergence of the Tamil public sphere. Until then, after the 50s, if I'm understanding it correctly, you said like the dominance of the upper castes was not quite the same as it was in the 20s and 20s through the 40s. So what was the reason for that Tamil public sphere's emergence? That's my first question. And the second one is, since you like speaking about Nadaswaram and Tamil, I just wanted to know that when did Paraisai make its entrance into Tamil cinema? Because we see that with contemporary cinema right now, a lot of Parai is being used. But when was it first? When did it first make an emergence into Tamil cinema?
Parai has been used in the right from the beginning. Parai was never kept outside. If you go to any studio, you will see that Parai is there. Therefore, Parai was never outside. Acknowledging it might have taken time, but using it has been there constantly. The central aspect in Tamil modernity is that we are not saying that the dominance of some community has disappeared. All we are trying to say is that we were conscious of the differences and hence we created an inclusive public sphere. Therefore, our prose become much more inclusive. The prose did not have any caste markings now. If you're looking at a political speech of a self-respect movement person or a left leader, you're not going to say that this marks a particular community. Therefore, that departure from social markers in the prose is a key one. And part of that is dropping of the surnames, getting into secular names where your caste is not going to be known. If I'm going to be called Anbaragan, how are you going to find my caste? There was this dropping of the surnames and also moving towards these type of nomenclature was central towards this. But I think it's a growth of print also played a big role, because growth of print helped people to carry these ideas wide across the state. Growth of print, independent trajectories, all these things contributed towards that. And it's very easy. All you have to do is to pick up any work of fiction of 30s and you will know that, okay, this is a Brahmin character, this is a Iyengar character, this is a Chettiar character, or everything will be there. The social markers, the moment the first dialogue happens, you will know all the social characters are there in the words. The moving away from those social markers was a central one towards the emergence of the Tamil modern prose.
Did any change in the political sphere or the social sphere create that emergence?
Yes, it happened simultaneously. It happened in such a way that that's the reason a film like Tillana Mohanambal becomes central, because Tillana Mohanambal comes just before DMK coming to power. And if you look at that film has only one villain. That is Nagesh. He's a Brahmin, and the Brahmin villain is a pimp. Which means actually industry moves towards the emerging social reality. Remember, it was serialized in Ananda Vigadan. Therefore, this idea of Brahmin, non-Brahmin, beyond a point, if it sells, it sells. Therefore, Tillana Mohanambal sells. We have to keep that also in mind. The commodity value for all the cultural product can never be undermined.
If there are no questions.
Thank you. Sorry.
will all accept with me that this is a fantastic way to start our Chennai book club. Of course, Ganesh, I saw him here. Yes, Ganesh was also part of the earlier one, and we have also now transformed into a different thing. Now, the oldies, many of them who used to be here, they're not seen, but I'm sure they will also join us. It's really fantastic, and I request Kirba to come and propose from a lot of thanks, and we want to give you a book, but it won't be fair if I give you something of my choice. Rather, if you select one of our publishing eminent publishers' books, we would only be very happy. If you're interested in that, I can give you a book by Shivagami.
Yeah, I'll do
Yes.
this, yeah.
This will be given to you by Arsha. Will anyone help Arsha while she's giving the book to take a picture? Not. Yes. Okay. Wait.
They're taking photographs. Thank you.
Next Sunday, it's going to be in Tamil, and Arsha, they call her as Tiranaivu Rani in Varangal Padipon and Padipom. In a very short period of time, she made a big mark. So she is going to do a book by Mannar Mannan, Varalatil Sila Tirthangal. It's almost in line with what we have discussed, how history has been written by the people in the power to their own whims and fancies. So those who are interested, they can also join, but only the request to you is you have to warn in before because of the availability of space. Over to you, Kripa.
So good afternoon to one and all present here. It's an immense pleasure for me to propose vote of thanks. This morning, actually till 8 o'clock, we were discussing like Hamlet's to be or not to be, whether to have the meeting or not. And when Sir confirmed that, when discussed with Panneerselvan Sir was more than us. He was very much interested. So with the given climate today, today's given climate, to travel from a place, I think when it rains in Chennai, if you have to travel even 5 kilometers, it's a big challenge. So Panneerselvan Sir was, very much happy to address us. So I'd like to, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank Sir. And he also highlighted many things about, especially about the kind of dominance, asserted by classicism, and how Tamil modernity, adopted to it by creating counter forms. So thanks for highlighting each and every nuances of the counter resistance, sir. So thank you. And I would like to thank the audience next, because I'm just subverting the hierarchy, because without the discussion part, I think today's program would not have been a full-fledged one. I think equally, competent with his speech, the discussion part also went on well. It's because of you all. So next, I would like to thank you, all of you. So please do keep coming for the upcoming sessions. And as Sir said, you'll be informed through broadcast, and you'll be given the book title. So if possible, if you have time, please do read and come. So thanks for taking part in the discussion. Then I'd like to thank Orivanan Sir. Sir, just we had a conversation. It was a coffee table conversation kind of thing. Why can't we, redo it again? We have to bring it back. Then as Sir said, he said, okay, if you people are ready, then I am also in. And whenever we come up with new initiatives, like tomorrow Arsha and team, they are going to start, ma'am, they are going to start an online program for kids. So whenever we come up with ideas, Sir is there to encourage us, give us space, and he'll let us play the game. So that is his leadership style. So I'd like to thank Orivanan Sir for all his support. And next, I'd like to thank Asha ma'am and CB sir for being of great help to us. Here, I would also like to mention about Prem. Actually, myself, Joycey, and Prem are running this program. Prem, he actually started from his place, but he couldn't join us because of the cancellation of train. So special mention of thanks to Prem also, and thanks to Muruganandam, who's in charge of the hall. So thank you. And I also once again thank each and every one of the participants, because you all have taken your precious time and you have come here, and during this time of rain you have taken kind of risk and you have come. So thank sorry guys. So I think if the hall is full today, it's all because of Joycey. It's not because of even, I'm not exaggerating, it's not even because of Olivan sir, it's because of Joycey. That's the kind of, see, the moment this idea was mooted, every day she used to call me at least 5 times, and we used to have long discussions over phone, and even till we reached here, she was like attending calls and making sure whether people have reached and all. So thanks a lot, Joycey. We are indebted to you, actually. Thank
Part of the family, so she didn't mention it. That's why.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you all. So thank you all. Please keep coming. Thank you.